May 22nd, 2011. It's one of the scariest days of my life. I worked night shift at a factory, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I would leave my house at about 5 o'clock, say goodbye to the wife and kids, go to work and get changed out so I was ready for work. So I got there and I got changed out, and they were calling for tornado type activity. And so I was watching the sky, it was starting to get dark. So I called the wife and I told her that they should probably go ahead and get in the closet in the center of the house just to be safe. The wife assured me that's where they were. We had a newborn baby at the time and a 5-year-old and 6-year-old, I believe. So it's her and the 3 kids in the closet. And as we're talking, the phone line goes dead. Now, people at the job site are starting to get pretty worried. I was worried. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go check on my family, but my supervisors wouldn't let me. My coworkers wouldn't let me. We were getting reports in of big tornadoes. So I was frantically trying to call my wife back, and I finally got through to her sometime around 5:40, 5:50, and she answered the phone, and then all I heard was her and my kids screaming, and then the phone line went dead again. Now, at this point, they have moved all of us to the storm shelter area of the factory. We had people arrive late to work. One gentleman drove in, parked his truck right by the front door, like he came in like a bat out of hell. His front window, his side windows, his rear window, they were all busted out and gone. He was visibly shaken. He had driven through this and just got to work. We had another guy that didn't make it into work. He ended up getting stuck on the way, and so he had actually hid under his lunch cooler inside of his car, and his lunch cooler was full of things sticking into it. His lunch cooler saved his life that day. Now, while we were at the factory, there was a little bit of damage to the factory, but I believe it was an ammonia leak that had really caused the worry at the factory, and so they had us running around the factory trying to stay out of the path of the wind to stay away from the chemical leak. Now, as soon as things cleared up, the factory was closed down. There was no work to be had. Part of the roof was missing. And so me, my dad, and my cousin got in his truck to head across town. This is Joplin, Missouri, one of the biggest tornadoes that has ever been recorded. It was about a mile wide at its biggest point. I believe there's 158 casualties and over 700 people injured. Going through the town was like a war zone. It was insane. We had to get from one side of town to the other. At this point, I still hadn't heard anything from my wife and kids, and it looked bad. There was bloodied people walking all over, people stuck in their houses. Me, my dad, and my cousin had gotten into my dad's truck at the factory, and we're trying to make it across town. I remember at one point there was a tree blocking the road, and so we drove through a gentleman's yard, and this guy was irate, like his house was gone. And yet he chased us through his yard with a piece of siding beating on our truck because we were driving through his yard. To his credit, it was a stressful day. Now we got, we got to 18th Street, and I believe my house was on 24th Street at the time. And so I had 6 or 8 blocks that I had to travel. We had got, my cousin went the direction to his house. My dad walked with me, and so we cut across as much as we could. There's an elementary school that was rubble. We cut through where the elementary school was. You could smell gas everywhere because of all the different broken lines and whatnot. I got to my house. My roof is gone. My couch is sitting in my front yard. There's a wall missing. We had wood paneling in the house, like half-inch wood paneling, and there's pieces of plastic, flimsy plastic, stuck through this side, or not siding, but the walls in the house. At about this time, I finally got a call from my wife. She informed me that they had made it, that they were at her dad's house. They were in the closet when I was on the phone with them. That's when the tornado was hitting the house. It ripped the roof off the house, ripped the ceiling off the closet, and yet my wife and my 3 kids were untouched. They didn't have cuts on their feet from walking through glass with no shoes on. They were completely unharmed. That you can say what you want, but it was a miracle. So I gathered up formula and stuff that I could find still in the house, in the cupboards and whatnot. I had 2 laundry baskets that I filled up with what was left of being valuable in our house. And then my dad drove me over to where my wife and kids were at the time. It was by far the scariest day of my life, just not knowing. Last thing I had heard from my wife and kids was screams for a couple of hours. So kiss those that you love. Hold them tight. You never know. To all those that suffered through that event, I'm so sorry. It was horrific. It changed a lot around here. There was like $2.8 billion in damage. There was thousands, I think it was like over 4,000 homes destroyed. It changed Joplin, Missouri. It changed the look of the town for sure. Anyway, there's the account of the scariest day of my life. Much love all. Funny stories to come, I promise.